Well, everyone, welcome to World at War Comics. Very excited to have back again Mr. Joseph Illidge, writer, editor, and a whole bunch of other things we're going to talk about, which I know everyone knows, but you're a legend in the industry, Joseph. It's always a pleasure to have you on. I'm always honored to talk to you, my friend.
Thomas, thanks for having me back, and thank you for your kindness.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Joseph, I mean, a lot of news has come out over the last couple months, right before the holidays. I know you've been kind of doing some of this stuff already, but I feel like it's official with the branding, with your own IP and everything that you're trying to do to help bring all these amazing things to life in a lot of different formats, whether print, TV, film, all kinds of cool stuff. So I'm hoping we can jump into that. We know you had Bloodletter, and I'm sure you got a bunch of other stuff that you're working on right now. So whatever you're able to kind of talk about, man, we could dive in if you're okay with that.
Sounds good. Let's go.
Let's do it. So I would love, Joseph, to know, like, what is the genesis of Illuminous?
That's a great question. So, it started. So one of the things is, I've been in comics for 33 years now. I started at Milestone, and then I went to DC Comics, worked on Batman. And so that was a great education for me, above and beyond reading comics since I was in the first grade, because Milestone was a really historic entrepreneurial effort, right? You had Derek T. Dingle, Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, and as history would reveal in time, Christopher Priest. These, five geniuses in different crafts came together and created a company that, basically spawned this multicultural, multi-gender, like sexually diverse, groundbreaking superhero universe. Had a publishing deal with DC Comics, gave birth to the character Static, which of course would become a world-changing character. That was an entrepreneurial mindset. A lot of people, a lot of their peers would have told them what they're going to do is impossible, right? And then they did it. So that's the first company that I worked in comics. So right there, the idea of entrepreneurship and ownership of ideas was embedded in me, right? The second stop is working at DC Comics on Batman, who's arguably, I would think, one of the top 5 globally known and profitable intellectual properties on planet Earth, right?
Absolutely.
And learning about what an intellectual property really is, the rules, maintenance, the responsibility of being a caretaker of the Batman franchise. So those two educations, that fusion, I feel like laid the groundwork for what Illuminous would be. And Illuminous started as a production company, and the first announcement I made was a partnership with writer Christopher Priest, 50 Cent's G-Unit Film and Television, and Color Farm with Erica Alexander and Ben Arnon to make a film franchise based off of Christopher's comic book Zero, which was published at DC Comics. There you go. Published at DC Comics, but had a special contract so that if DC did not publish or reprint any Zero content within a certain period of time, the rights would revert back to Christopher Priest, which they did.
Yeah.
So he owns Zero 150%, right? So the company was founded again with the entrepreneurial mindset. And what I've been doing since 2019 is I've been providing editorial services to clients globally, creators, clients, companies, and really looking at the landscape now and how the comic book industry has become robust to an unprecedented degree in terms of the number of original ideas that the industry demands. It seemed like the perfect time to take my work and bring it to the forefront with Illuminous as the tip of the spear. So what I do through Illuminous is I work with creators, clients, and companies to introduce their original ideas to the world in the form of comic books and graphic novels. And of course, it's a process and it's an investment That said, I do believe that the future is ownership of intellectual property, and not ownership of intellectual property for instant gratification. It's basically long-term thinking. So I use the analogy of the same way you think of real estate properties, right? You buy a house, you nurture the house, you get into the guts of it, the electrical, the plumbing, the insulation, the foundation, the girders and everything. And you invest in it and you give it some TLC, and then that asset grows in value, it appreciates in value, and it's something that you can belong to your children, right? In the present, you can use it to acquire income, but you can pass it along to your children. This is the same kind of mentality that Ryan Coogler applied when he made the Sinners deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, right? That in 25 years, the rights fully revert back to his family. So whether he's alive, I mean, if he and his wife have a child, it can go to that person, right? But it's generational wealth. And so I feel like the real estate analogy of real estate properties is how we have to think about intellectual properties, that we're developing them for the long game. And so I'm able to take my 33 years of experience working at Milestone, working on Batman, working at Valiant, working at Heavy Metal, and guide people on how to make the highest quality ideas for long-term thinking.
Absolutely incredible. And I feel like this topic, just in general, about owning your own IP, obviously it's been something, kind of a hot topic over, probably for many years, to be quite honest. But I feel like over the last 10 to 15 years, you have like the Rick Remenders, the Jeff Johns, and a lot of people have been really focusing away from, I don't want to call it the big two, because they still play a major role, obviously, and there's a lot of positives there. But the reality is you're building somebody else's IP, and to be able to take some of that ingenuity and take it over and then be able to create something on your own, like you said, that could pay dividends, hopefully long term. I feel like you're seeing a lot more creators do that. When did that kind of start, Joseph? When did you start to see kind of that movement toward that area of owning your own IP?
Well, for me seeing it, it goes back to the founding of Image Comics.
Yeah.
Right? I was there in 92 when Youngblood 1 came out. That was even pre-Image. Youngblood 1 came out through Malibu Comics. 1993, Spawn comes out, Wildcats comes out, Savage Dragon, Wetworks, Shadowhawk. Like it was an amazing time. And that's just Image. That's not what Brian Pulido did with Chaos Comics. That's not Jim Shooter helping to create Valiant Comics, right? That's not the Malibu Ultraverse. The 90s were an explosive creative time. You had Milestone, you had Ania Comics, you had Big City Comics making Brother Man, right? Like that idea of ownership, it happens in these explosive bursts in our industry, in our society. And right now, what you're talking about is you're talking about a time in which the systems that we have been told to rely on in the 20th century are proving themselves to be less dependable for our long-term futures in the 21st century. And so when you're talking about the big two, and we should actually correct that and say the big three, because you got to put Image up there. Also, kudos to DC Comics for now claiming the #1 spot in the direct market in December, right?
Absolutely.
But that's the big three in the direct market. That's not even the big three in comics. The trade publishers are making things. Dave Pilkey, with Diary? No, Dave Pilkey is a cat. No, why am I bugging out here? Dogman. Right? Like Dogman. You're talking Diary of a Wimpy Kid.
Yeah.
You have
Captain Underpants is another one that I think is
exactly
right? Yeah.
Exactly. Look at what
Or
has
Bone.
happened.
Maybe Bone.
Well, listen, Jeff Smith.
Yeah.
Jeff Smith came from that generation in the early 90s of the creators who were making their comics by hook or by crook. That's Jeff Smith. That's Dave Sim. That's Wendy and Richard Peeney, right? It's like the comic book industry spawned that editorial spirit because it was spawned out of a mechanism that profited off of the creative powers of people like Jack Kirby and, you know, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, right? And the list goes on and on and on. Bill Everett, Steve Ditko, right? And the list goes on and on and on. And so right now at this time, I feel like because people understand that systems that were dependable are no longer dependable for the long term, I feel like that's a metaphor for creatives. When you look at various industries, when you look at, it's not just comics, look at what's going on in animation.
Yeah.
Right? Like if there's an industry that needs a new image comics paradigm, it's animation. Like if 7 powerhouses in animation got together and announced the next studio, that would be wild. And so we're in one of those paradigm shifts now. And because of webcomics, because of Kickstarter, it's easier for creators to make the books and get the books to, you know, their customer base because there are more comic book conventions than ever before. The in real life business interaction has exploded. There are weekends where there are literally 3 comic book conventions in the same weekend, and 2 of them are formidable medium level conventions, right? So there are so many entrepreneurial opportunities, but where it starts is with the idea. And that's not just for comic book creators. A number of my clients are overseas clients, they're entrepreneurs, and they just want an idea to be out in the world that can be part of their business legacy apparatus, right? So I work with a variety of different people across business strata and creative strata.
I mean, this is why I think, you know, Paul over at Black Comic Lords, I think he calls you the professor, because the knowledge that you have, that you bring, is just absolutely phenomenal. I don't know if you could say what you just said any better. That really kind of defines everything when surrounding like IP and owning your IP and how important that is. I would love to ask this question. You know, what does that mean for the big 3 in the next, you know, 10 or so years? Because if the direction is to take your creator own and then own that IP, is that where the best ideas are going to eventually flow, and it'll be less on, you know, going towards some of these characters that are not owned by them? Like, what does that mean long term, do you think, for the industry, and how do you think that will shake it up?
I think what it means is, number one, creators are going to have to become more strategic. So artists, and when I say artists, I'm encapsulating many people from different creative fields. Artists have been told for a very long time that they are tools, that they're the best hammer, the best wrench, the best screwdriver, right? The best set of needle nose pliers. And that if they get to work for a big company, they should be thrilled. They should be absolutely thrilled, and they should consider that the summit of what they can do. They have been told that if they get to work on Batman or the X-Men, that's as high as it gets, right? That's really just the beginning, right? As high as it gets, I mean, The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
The Walking Dead is not just an intellectual property. The Walking Dead is a franchise.
Yeah.
Not all intellectual properties are franchises.
Good point.
But The Walking Dead is a franchise. Invincible is on deck to become a franchise, right? Now, there are two approaches. One is, you could come up in the mainstream and then walk away from it altogether, which is what Robert Kirkman did. Another is that you can travel between both worlds and you can do what George Clooney did in his younger years with his career, where he co-founded a motion picture company with I forget the director right now, but oh God. But one of the first films they made was Solaris, right? And at that time he said, one for Hollywood, one for the mainstream, and one for me. Right? So he would do one for the studios that he would not have ownership in, and then he would do one for him that he would have ownership in, right? So that is another way to do it. You walk between worlds. So you go and you do Superman, you have fun with Superman, and then you go do something for Image Comics, and then you have fun with that. So I think the future is going to involve more creators with entrepreneurial mindset and talent, and more of a binary mindset in terms of how they handle their careers, where they're going to want to walk in between both worlds, right? Because the 16-year-olds who are loving absolute Batman right now, they're going to become adults, and Batman's going to be a fixture in their heads, and they're probably going to have this itch that they're going to want to scratch, that they're going to want to do their magnum opus Batman story, right? That's all fine and dandy, but also have something that is your magnum opus, right? That is your big long-term idea. I think Rick Remender is a great example. What he's done founding Giant Generator, based off of decades of work, him going very public, I think it was 2 years ago, and saying that he turned down offers from DC to work on Batman and Marvel to work on X-Men so that he could go full force with Giant Generator, right? Jeff Johns, who is unquestionably one of the most significant DC universe architects of the last 25 years.
Agree, yeah.
Besides, hey, it's Ghost Machine now. And he pulls his best collaborators from DC that he worked on things like Doomsday Clock and all these cool projects. He's like, let's go. And everyone gets equity, right? Like Brian Hitch, artist of The Authority, which changed superhero comics forever, right? He's like, this is what I'm doing now. It's Ghost Machine and that's it, right? So there's this magnetic pull. I think there's urgency where creators don't want to die at their table and never have taken their shot on this idea that's been in the back of their heads for like 10 years.
Wow. Now, if you're a young person and we come to Joseph and we ask, what path should I take? Should I try and create my own thing now because of Kickstarter and all these other opportunities? Or do you suggest creating a name for yourself in a larger title that's more globally known, and then utilizing what you're able to gain off of that title as far as branding for yourself, and then take it to your own? Is there a difference to you, one that's better than the other?
I wouldn't say one is better than the other, because every individual has their own dreams and priorities.
Good point.
What I do consider a good example is Jonathan Hickman, right? So, there's a lot of people, they know Jonathan Hickman from the Krakoa era of the X-Men franchise, now from Ultimate Spider-Man, maybe even Secret Wars. But how many people know early Jonathan Hickman when he was just doing all of these series at Image, right? And then he's working on Fantastic Four. Now, how does that happen? That happens because through a body of work, creator-owned, he showed his intelligence, his commitment to stories, his capacity for imagination. Someone at Marvel understandably goes, hey, that guy has something that we don't have at our company now. If we take him and Jonathan Hickman times a franchise of ours that needs a kick in the butt, Fantastic Four equals, right? And what it equaled was the rejuvenation of the Fantastic Four franchise, which led to the Future Foundation, which we're now going to see parts of in Avengers Doomsday and quite possibly Avengers Secret Wars.
Amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
To me, that's the example. It's make your own comics. Don't make your own comics for you to get the call and say, I want to work on Spider-Man. Just make your own comics and be in control. Because if you say to yourself, my goal is to one day draw Batman, if you are one of the most driven human beings on the planet and in the industry, you can achieve that, yes. But then what?
Yeah.
Let's say in 10 years you get to Batman. Then what do you do? Right? Because one day Batman will let you go.
Yeah.
And then you're out there in the wind.
Yeah.
Right? Is it downhill from there? If working on Batman was again the summit of your ambition, right? That can't be the summit of your ambition, right? So it all depends on the individual, but ultimately I feel like, let's say you were just coming out of art school right now and you're like, hey, what do I do? I'm like, you really love comics? Yeah. Get a regular job and make your own comics on the side. Get a regular job so that you have a regular income.
Right.
Do comics on the side. If when you get to the point where you're making so much money from comics that can be the A income source, then make that transition.
Yeah.
But comics is not a lucrative business for the majority of people.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, and you have to know what you're getting into, and you have to know how intense the competition is. You have to understand that.
Amazing. Well, I mean, this is where I think Illuminous comes in, right? Can you kind of walk through the type of creators that you're looking for? I mean, you're already like Christopher Priest is one of my favorite writers. I have him on all the time. I love Christopher. And then we were talking about Zero. We know that it was optioned for film, like all of that you've been involved in as well. Can you kind of walk us through that process of when you are working with a creator, that creator that you were talking about that encompasses everything? Like, what is it that someone is going to gain by working with Illuminous, and what do you know what I mean? What can they expect from your support? Like I've talked to you, obviously I read your work. You're the professor. But if someone wants to bring something to you, like what does that process look like?
So that's a great question. So I'll tell you a few things. So number one, what's important for the client to know, and no matter what strata of life you come from, that is who you are to me, respectfully. You're the client, right? It's important for you to know that I have a foothold in the business that I'm talking about. I graduated from School of Visual Arts here in New York City. So I have an art education, and that's part of what has made me a better than average editor. Let's say that is having understanding of art, so that when I speak to artists, I speak to them in their language. That's important, right? So at School of Visual Arts, the rule was you could not be an instructor unless you were a working professional in the field that you were instructing in.
Amazing.
Right? So if you're teaching me illustration, but you're not a working illustrator, why should I believe in the authenticity of what you say to me? Right? So with me, I just finished working in the Spawn universe, right? When you talk about top entrepreneurs in comics, Todd McFarlane better be one of the first three names you mention, or you're missing the boat, right? So I just developed with Tim Seeley and Christian Rosado a new intellectual property within the Spawn universe, which is Bloodletter, right? So to me, the Bloodletter miniseries is an example of how you do it, right? I'm working with DC Comics. I'm working with Harper Collins on multiple graphic novels. I'm working with 23rd Street Books Macmillan on a graphic novel coming out in 2028. I'm working with FairSquare Graphics, developing my own original idea, which is a Harlem Renaissance story called The Winterfields, with Chris Cross, who's a more than 30-year veteran in comics. So when I'm talking to clients, I am walking the walk as I'm talking the talk with you. I am working for mainstream companies, and I am working on my own original ideas, right? So it's important for you to know that. I would say what I would want from a client, right? And we're going to brass tacks it now.
Okay.
You have to be ambitious, right? If it's just a hobby for you, I don't think I'm the person for you. I feel like if it's just a hobby, you could do that at your own speed. You would have to be extraordinarily ambitious, right? About wanting to get your ideas into the world at highest quality. You will have to have a certain level of financial resources, right? Because of my level of experience. But ultimately, what's important for you to know is that I am here for you. This is not about me. This is about you. Like, I have been fighting for creators for decades, and I want to be part of the solution of helping more people get their ideas out in the form of comic books and graphic novels at highest quality. And this is important, not to immediately get a media deal. And I want to tell you what that means. So the comic book audience is pretty sophisticated. Now, it's a widely varied, multi-layered community, but it's a sophisticated community. And we can smell manure, right? And for this conversation, I'm going to define manure as something disguised as a comic book, but is meant to be something else, right? That's a problem.
Yeah.
It's a problem because, number one, the comic book art form, as far as I'm concerned, is the best storytelling art form that humanity has created for itself. That's the hill I die on, right? Secondly, I cannot think of one successful film, TV show, or streaming show that came from a comic book that was made to be something else. When you look at the most successful media adaptations, and let's go way back, right? Let's talk about Road to Perdition, right? Road to Perdition, created by Max Allan Collins and Richard Piers Rayner, at the early part of our century, becomes this amazing film with Tom Hanks, the boy who would become Superman, Tyler Hoechlin, the man who would become James Bond, Daniel Craig, and the legend Paul Newman, directed by Sam Mendes. And it's an amazing film. I could watch Road to Perdition now, and it holds up decades later. That came from a graphic novel. How do I know? Because I read that graphic novel when it came out. Somewhere in the basement full of boxes, there's a copy of Road to Perdition, right? A History of Violence, you know, Scott Pilgrim, right? And that's not even touching superheroes, man. That's before the Marvel Cinematic Universe came to be, which is then way before DC Studios in its form as DC Studios came to be. So those things were all made off of great comics. And great comics are the best foundation for multimedia adaptation. So what I want to work for people to do is to make the best comics. And Todd McFarlane, you know, Spawn Sensei and ex-boss, you know, he has really been a big advocate of the 50 issue idea.
Yeah.
Right? And why? Sure, it's hard to make 50 issues. It's probably going to take you 6 years, right? But 50 issues gets you one of these. 50 issues gets you what, like 6 trade paperbacks, like, I don't know, maybe 3 big hardcovers and a compendium.
Yeah.
How much money is Todd McFarlane making off these 6 Spawn compendiums?
I got the same 7 right here, my friend.
Dude, you know how much money? Like, there's a monstrous compendium over there. In my living room is Jonathan Hickman and Nick Dragata's East of West, right? Let's not even talk about Robert Kirkman and publishing with Invincible and Walking Dead, right? That's the thing. You know, a large body of publishing can lead to large profit over a period of time. It can be the gift that keeps on giving. There are people that are discovering Saga now. And there's a big Saga compendium waiting for them. Mine is up there next to Paper Girls by Brian K. Vaughan and Cliff Chang, right? So that's the thing. I wanna put people on the path to the 50 issue idea. And listen, I'm working on mine right now. It'll probably be announced this summer. We don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how long the road is going to be, but you got to start.
Yeah.
You got to start on that path, right? And so that's it. It's long-term value. It's long-term thinking. And even in an industry that is conditioning people towards the miniseries, you can make a 5-issue story, but plan out the long story, because if that 5-issue story is a hit, if it's a big seller, there's no way that publisher is going to say, okay, we're done here. They're going to be like, nope. They're going to be like Hollywood. They're going to be like, let's get the sequel going now. And you need to be ready with storyline too. You need to say, oh yeah, I have the long tail of this figured out. Not like, oh crap, what, you know?
Yeah.
And we've seen that. We've seen that in film.
Yeah.
We don't have to mention which films.
Yeah.
But we've seen it in film where it's like, 1 just shattered our brains. Yeah. And then 2 and 3 was like, this
like
wasn't planned.
Rush to make something, right?
Yeah, it's like that wasn't planned.
Right.
And I can tell that wasn't planned.
Right.
Right. So long-term thinking, long-term value, high quality. Right.
I love it. I love it. We got a few comments here. A long-term plan for a story is important unless your goal is just a one-shot or a mini series.
Agreed. You can have an idea for a one-shot story. That's fine. Do it, and it's great. It can be a great graphic novel. Look at David Mazzucchelli's Asterios Polyp. Yeah. That's just one amazing book, right? So it depends. If you look at, there are different books, TKO Studios, a number of people did different projects, Sarah, Sentient, you know, Goodnight Paradise. You know, I'm looking at my bookshelf right now. But then you also have Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, the duo that cannot be stopped. And what do they have? They have a bunch of criminal hardcovers. What's coming out? A criminal show.
Yeah.
And there are seasons now because you've got this body of work. It's like, oh, we can go for 5 years on criminal. Yeah. Right? So you can do a one-shot idea, make it the best one you can. You can do a mini-series idea, make it the best one you can. But if the idea is organically designed to be that way, I would say mini-series with the plan for the sequels. But if this is really like a finite story, like 5 to 8 issues and we're done here, then do it and just knock it out the park.
Yeah. I'm thinking Daniel Warren Johnson do a power bomb.
Oh, well, listen.
That's such a good title.
Yeah, and I think, you know, So Daniel Warren Johnson is actually a great example because that's a guy that he's making comics to be comics.
Yeah.
Do a Power Bomb is not a pitch for a Hulu series disguised as a comic book.
Exactly.
It's a wrestling comic book, right?
I think I have it right here somewhere. Yeah, no, you're 100% right, Joseph. I mean, you could tell when he wrote that there is a passion for this story, and he had to get
Absolutely.
it right.
Absolutely.
He had to release it. You could tell, like you were saying, the genuineness of having something deep within that you have to get out, and the time you spend to put it all together like this. Nothing like
That's it. And it makes a difference because, again, you can tell when something is made to be that, and you can tell when something is not made to be that. Yeah. Well, look, I mean, Jim Zub, someone's mentioning, Jim Zub has been making creator-owned stories for years. I think his most popular one is Wayward.
Wayward, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's a dude, he goes way back, and I feel like in a sense, he was a more modern, like Dave Sim or Jeff Smith, where it's like he was making this with his collaborators, kept making it, and he was able to figure out a basically functional, feasible economic model, right? And that's another thing. You really have to start learning about business as a creator, because if you have an idea and that thing becomes a hit, that's an IP. Yeah. You need to understand how to manage it. You're going to get contracts from publishers. If the publishers are putting in money, then there's something they're going to want for that money. You have to understand what they're asking for, right? Are they asking for part of the IP rights? Are they asking for multimedia residuals? Are they asking for the exclusive rights to shop it from multimedia projects? Where does licensing come into play? All of these things you're going to need to know if your idea turns out to be the one that kicks off.
Incredible. That's why when I saw that when the news came out about Illuminous, I can't think of a better person to talk to and to work with if you have something like that, because the knowledge that you have being in the industry and being able to guide people. I mean, there's pitfalls in every business, right, that you have to look out for. And again, at the end of the day, right, we're talking about big companies. Big companies usually have investors. They're profit driven. So if you don't have this kind of a knowledge, unfortunately, there could be some pitfalls that you could fall into, and you could lose a large portion of your IP, or there's a lot of other things that could take place. So having someone in your corner that could say, hey, before you do anything, let's talk about this, and let's make sure we understand what is probably going to be placed on the table in front of you. And then let's figure out what that negotiation might look like, where obviously they have to benefit from it, but you have to also protect a certain portion for yourself too, so that everything that we talked about at the beginning, Joseph, can pay dividends long-term for you and your children. I don't know if I'm correct in saying that, but I think that is
100%, 100%. And, to fine tune it more. So what I do is really work with the creators to develop their original ideas, and I am able to share with them the kind of knowledge that I acquired working on Batman to help them position their IP for the long term. Now, after we're done and the comic book is made, you have the digital file, what I do is I provide referral services. I can refer clients to lawyers, marketing people, PR people, publishing and distribution experts, right? So once you're done working with me, I'm not casting you to the wind. I am sending you to the network. Yeah. And that network of people are going to help you protect your intellectual property for the long term. Yeah. Right? Because that would be the worst thing. The worst thing would be to make something formidable, but because you don't have the knowledge, some other institution or party cons you out of it. right? So what is the point of me trying to help you if I leave you to the wolves?
Yeah.
Right? So I am not going to leave people to the wolves. I'm going to refer them to the network.
Incredible. Yeah. Far too few creatives do not understand the business side at all.
100%, because creatives were brainwashed and programmed to think business is boring.
Mm-hmm.
They were told, or they're now thinking, capitalism is terrible. Capitalism isn't terrible. Neo-capitalism is terrible. Greed is terrible. Narcissism fueled capitalism is terrible. But the mechanism of being able to develop your own business empire through hard work and strategy and team building and company founding, that should be the inevitability, right? So the first thing is that, we talked about that I was a graduate of School of Visual Arts. So quick anecdote, my second year of School of Visual Arts, I had a teacher. His name was Sal Catalano. And he taught art, but he also taught us business. And the reason he taught business is because a lot of creative colleges don't teach you business. They teach you the art of animation. They teach you the art of writing. They teach you the art of acting. They teach you all of the arts, but none of the business. So when you go out into the world eats you alive. It eviscerates you. It devours you, right? And so that's why not enough creatives know about business, because they're not given that level of knowledge in the creative institutions. They got to learn that through the School of Hard Knocks, or if they're fortunate, like I was, the universe gives them mentors. So when I became an intern at Milestone and they ended up, bringing me on as a part-time employee, which led to full-time full-time employment, I had 4 mentors, right? Then I would go to deep, right? I had Derek Dingle, business mentor, Dwayne McDuffie, writing and story mentor, Dennis Cowan, artist mentor, Michael Davis, business mentor. I go to DC Comics and I'm working in Batman, Denny O'Neil. Denny O'Neil is my next story mentor, right? I was fortunate to have mentors. I think mentorship is one of the most important layers of life, of career. And so I would say anyone coming out of an artistic field institution, before they go out into the world, if there's a way to find a mentor, one of the ways you do it is through interning at companies. But there are other ways, right? And now we have more interviews like this so people can actually learn that way. I mean, listen, I'll keep it for you real. When it comes to business, I read a lot of business books. I take a lot of business courses, but you better believe I'm watching a lot of entrepreneurs talk on YouTube.
Yeah.
I've watched a lot of interviews with Todd McFarlane on YouTube, and that's how I really learned how he makes his money. Right? Yep. Like, and how he became Todd McFarlane, his mentality for breaking rules. It's like, how did he become this guy that an entire generation of artists, they call him the Todd Father? Like the Godfather, he's the Todd Father.
Yep.
Right? How does a person like that become that? I watched interviews to see that. So he, in a sense, is a business mentor to me, even though in real life we've only met twice, because I've watched him talk about his experiences. And then, I just suck that knowledge out and into my brain with a big straw, like a milkshake. Right. So that's it. That's the journey.
Yeah. And what a incredible journey it can be when you have the right knowledge too. Which I think is the key, right? Is ensuring that man, mentors is so important. I'm in the business world, but in the grocery industry, and man, all my success has come from others who have gone before me, that I was not too smart in a lot of areas, but I was smart enough to listen and learn. And man, that the trajectory of your career changes when you have those kind of people in front of you. So I could not agree more. I mean, the reality is, man, to find all this out on your own takes a lot of loss. Hard knocks is a really hard way to learn these type of things, right?
100%. And I've learned a lot that way.
Yeah, a lot of resources.
Now, some mentors prevented me from learning all of it that way, but yeah, you still have to go through your experiences and take in your hits. But what do you learn from them, right? Because, you know, something that's true in life and is true in, you know, characterization when you're writing is that pain is more educational than pleasure.
Yeah, it's so true. It really is.
Failing is more educational than success. Yeah. Right. So it shapes us. It's part of what we are. There's nothing to be ashamed of from failing. I would say, you know, it's a problem if you fail the same way 4 times. Yeah. But everyone fails. It's part of the development. You know, business titans that you admire, they failed sometimes.
Yeah.
They don't always knock it out the park. Who could?
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. This is Andrew. He says, I've fallen asleep listening to Todd teach. He's so good at the business facet, which
listen, you just got to see Todd McFarlane in action. I was at New York Comic-Con. I think this was 2024 for the retailers day, which was the Wednesday before the main Comic-Con, Thursday through Sunday. And there are a number of presenters, a number of speakers, conversations, and everyone, when they talk, they're on stage, they're sitting at their seat, there's someone at the podium. Todd McFarlane walks off the stage and he is among the people. And sometimes he's talking business, sometimes he's talking baseball. But when he's talking baseball, he's still talking business because there's something that he learned as like a coach for a high school team that he's brought over to Todd McFarlane Productions. But he comes to the people.
Yeah.
You see, because he is one of the people. Right? And that's the thing.
Couldn't agree more. Andrew also says being knowledgeable right from the jump isn't half as valuable as being teachable.
100%. 100%. You know, most people aren't right from jump. Yeah. I knew a guy that I worked with, I'm going to say that was 7 years ago. And he would say to the people that worked for him, his lieutenants, prove me wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Like, prove me wrong. Because when you build a team, it should be of people that are smarter than you, or if they're lieutenants, they're people that you help shepherd to be smarter than you, right? So, yeah, like being wrong can be good too. Because what can you learn from it, right? So it's all part of the process.
Couldn't agree more. Is it okay if we kind of jump to Zero for a second?
Let's talk about Zero for a few minutes.
Yeah. So I was just kind of curious, you know, I don't know how many years ago it was, but we know that it has been optioned for something, whether film, animation. We know 50
Right.
Cent,
it was for a film franchise.
Yeah. 50 Cent was involved. I don't know if 50 Cent is still involved. You know, over time, things change. Can you kind of walk through where Zero is? Because whenever the topic of Zero comes up, people get a little bit excited because I feel like there's definitely a desire for more of it. And then, you know, Christopher Priest is just, he's a very unique individual. Why I love him so much is he's very different from a lot of people that I get to talk to. The way he sees things, I love his honesty. But he also is very brilliant in the way that he tackles a story. And I learn a lot from him just having conversations with him. I think he is very, very good at what he does. And sometimes I wonder if he gets, and maybe he's a pretty humble guy. I don't know if he wants it, but I feel like, I don't know. I mean, people should be talking about Christopher Priest a little bit more with the history. Like you, he's been in the industry for many, many years. He's touched all kinds of crazy franchises. But then when you create something like this and it gets optioned, I was just kind of curious. I'm kind of rambling here because I love Christopher Priest, but can you kind of talk about where Zero is at and what people and fans can maybe expect, or is there anything really to talk about?
I think that's a great question. So number one, we're talking about Hollywood. We're talking about contracts. So the status of Zero is covered by some NDAs. But let me tell you what I can tell you.
Perfect.
Expect some announcements in the next 18 months. It might not be what you expect, but you're going to be happy with it.
All right.
Right? Because, you know, again, you know, Christopher is a partner in this, but he's also a friend. Yeah. So getting into this mission with him, that's not a mission that I would engage if I wouldn't fight to see it reach fruition. Right? Now, everyone knows in the last few years, Hollywood was greatly impacted by the confluence of the writer's strike and the Screen Actors Guild strike. And there was almost a director's strike, right? The trifecta did not happen, but we came close, right? Then what happened was the studios recalibrated their business models for smaller writing rooms and basically just a dichotomy of budgets. An amazing actor, Stellan Skarsgård, spoke about this once. Like, there's basically two budgets now. There's cheap and Marvel Studios.
Yeah.
Right? You trying to make a $50 million film? I don't know, bud. You see? So the industry has changed significantly since the Zero deal was created. And part of what we're doing is pivoting to these changes in real time. But I can tell you it's very much in play. And again, I would say within 18 months, there's going to be a significant Zero announcement. It's going to surprise people, but I think it's going to excite people as well. And it's something that Christopher and I were talking about up until last week.
Nice. I think that is enough to whet our appetite for what's coming. So I appreciate you sharing that. You know, with Hollywood and all the changes that, and I feel like the pandemic played a major role as well.
100%.
You have the pandemic, you have these strikes that took place. You could see Hollywood, and then you had kind of an exodus out of traditional Hollywood, and it's kind of been spread all over the world. But like Atlanta, Georgia has become this major hub of film. I know 100%. Texas, all kinds of movements, especially, you know, for maybe some of those Western style or gritty type movies, just because of the landscape. Like, it's spread all over the US and then globally, right? You have New Zealand, which is a hub for sci-fi and all these. It's incredible how it's expanded. But then you also see there's less films, I feel, that are coming out. I do. That's what it seems like. I feel like growing up, there was amazing films coming out all the time. We're still getting amazing films, but I think they're a little bit more spread out. And maybe that has something to do with the strike and everything that you were talking about. But I also feel with the popularity of manga, which has like catapulted anime into this crazy, like, it's insane how big that has become. And then you look at something like an Invincible, which at the beginning it was optioned for live action. I feel like the pivot, or maybe it was always going to be animation as well. Maybe they're going to do both. But the animation with Invincible, what they're doing at Amazon, has catapulted to that, to where, like you said, it's almost to the point where this is a major franchise within the industry. Do you think, just in general with comic books, live action could maybe be less of a focus, and animation might be some of the first places that you see a lot of these stories go to, just because of how anime has become so popular and what's happened with Invincible?
I would say that I don't feel like there will ever be more animation in terms of theatrical film or even streaming film than live action. And when you look, animation is even spawning live action adaptations. Let's look at One Piece, right? Season 2 is about to drop not next month, March. Season 2 of One Piece drops on Netflix in March. What is happening, though, is because of streaming, and because of the pandemic and some other variables, fewer people are going to the theaters as much. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a problem that I feel like we need to invest time and money in addressing. I think we need to go and see more films in the theaters. Number one, I think it's important that theaters survive. Number two, visionaries are making films for the big screen experience. Like, if the first time you're seeing Sinners is on your monitor at home, that's cool. Coogler's going to get some money, but I'm sorry for you. You should have experienced Sinners huge because it was made to be immersive, right? So I feel like we should make a concerted effort to go to theaters more, see more films there. And it doesn't have to be a big spectacle film either. There are ground level human films that are made for expansive view, right? But that said, the whole animation explosion, well, that depends where you are. Last year I went to France, and in the EU and the UK, animation is growing, and the governments are putting money into the development of animation. Now, in the United States, an entirely different thing. Here, we're going through something which some people have called an animation apocalypse. And let's not even start talking about artificial intelligence. That's a whole other podcast interview, right? But there's an animation executive who is a really sincere genius named Eric Calderon. And what he has advised that if people are in animation, start making your own thing. Sound familiar? But start small scale and then find your audience, build your community, and work your way up from there. Because the days of you having an idea and having a pitch deck and getting a studio to invest and make it, those are practically gone. Because more studios are relying on pre-existing time-tested intellectual properties. But if you start making your own now from the ground up and you build your community, in 20 years, yours could be the time-tested property. And it's important to build community because that is how you're going to get the support even with AI. And, this is not me. There is a writer, artist in comics. Her name is Sue Lee. She's quite intelligent, quite talented, and she sees things as they are. And she was the one that really drilled it to me. And building community is essential for any creative. It's not optional. You must build a community because that community will want to see you win. So if presented with two options and one is artificial intelligence and one is yours, they're going to pick you because they want to see you win, even if they can't tell the difference between the two, right? So that's another thing. As creatives, we have to build authentic communities.
Yeah. And that's probably a big part of building out your IP long term, right? Is really the communication to build that community, because they all go hand in hand. So it feels like, again, it's probably always been this complex, but when you start to dive into it and you see all the pieces of the puzzle that is necessary in order for something to become like an Invincible, there's a lot of factors, some luck. There's a lot of different things that have to kind of go your way. But then, like you said, it's the marketing of it. It's the collaboration with that consumer to make them feel like they're part of it. Like, there's so much that kind of goes into building something that could be sustainable and reach a second season and a third season and whatnot. I feel like that's really important. And that kind of goes back to that business conversation that you kind of led a little bit earlier, of understanding not just the story itself, the art, like everything that goes into a graphic novel, but if it's something that does have legs, there's like this next layer of knowledge that you need to have from a business standpoint in order to fuel that growth, because you could have something amazing and it could die before it ever reaches its potential because of the lack of understanding of all these key factors that go into catapulting it to that next kind of level of success, right?
100% true. 100%. So there's the creative acumen, and then there has to be the business acumen.
Man, Joseph, you are the professor, my friend. I don't know if you like that. I hope that's not offensive, but you know, every time that Paul mentions you, he kind of says that, so it's in the back of my mind. You're just a wealth of knowledge, man. I'm gonna just share, if it's okay with you, I'm gonna share your website. I'll share it so that way people could just, I think, are you gonna give updates and stuff like that on things that are taking place on the website? Is that something that people should kind of be visiting once in a while?
100%. What's going to be happening is I'll be starting the Illuminous Instagram channel soon.
Nice.
And then that's where people are going to see things. But I'll be ramping up the social media really soon. And I'm on all the platforms. So when you see the ramp up, you're going to see the ramp up across all the platforms. There's going to be a number of announcements, I would say, in the next, like 4 to 6 weeks, about things that Illuminous will be doing. Year one last year in this iteration of Illuminous was great, and really appreciate everyone that we're working with, everyone that helped spread the word about the company. Many thanks to Comics Beat and the people that were involved in listing Illuminous as an influential organization in comics for 2025. So we're going to be upping the ante, and we're going to continue walking the walk in this industry, and you're going to see things manifest. And those 3 things that you see right there on that front page, all of them are going to be manifesting in different ways, and some other things are going to get added.
That's incredible, man.
Yeah.
So beautiful. Yeah, this is just incredible, man. Absolutely incredible. I'm so happy for you, Joseph, everything that you've given to comic books, and here you are creating something that continues to give. I love it, man. I absolutely love it.
Thank you so much. Thanks. And it was just great because we met because of Bloodletter. So
yes,
it was great that that story brought me into the Spawn family, and
yes.
they embraced me, and they really loved the story of Tasha Thornwall and her revenge mission. And let's see if we'll get back to her again. But I will tell you that don't be surprised if there's a trade paperback announcement.
Yeah, there should be. I mean, there should be for sure, Joseph. And I hope we were able to revisit that title too, because with this expanded Spawn universe and these new characters being created that are just being woven through the history of Spawn, and what you're doing here, The Curse of Shirley Johnson. Like, we've been spoiled as Spawn fans for all these titles that come out, and what you and Tim Seeley put together. I hope there's more, because this expanded Spawn universe, I feel, has rejuvenated a lot of Spawn fans. As you know, now that you're part of this Spawn family with this title, Spawn fans are extremely passionate.
100%. 100%. I definitely knew coming in, like, yeah. Oh, okay, like, we're gonna have to bring it.
Yep.
Right, there's a standard, we're gonna have to bring it in. It was embraced, and we were thankful for that. And again, that's an illustration of, okay, you can have fun working for companies on work for hire, but you can follow the same rules of how to build memorable characters for long-term stories. That's what Tasha Thornwall is, and that's what the Winterfields are for FairSquare Graphics, and Noir is the New Black. So yeah, it's great to be able to continue to write the stories, and also to be able to give my knowledge, to clients to hire me, and through Illuminous, for me to help them on their journeys so they can step on fewer landmines.
So good. I mean, I think everyone needs that in their corner, to be honest, in this industry, because as simple as it seems like the industry is, it's so complex.
You
So
better believe it.
right. And the
You better
navigation
believe it.
that
And
is
just
crucial.
the same way the motion picture industry was affected by 2 strikes, like you said, a pandemic.
Yeah.
Well, the comic book industry, or at least a direct market comic book industry, was affected by the collapse of Diamond Comic Distributors last year, right? So seismic shifts happen in any industry, and we have to try to figure out ways to be adaptable to those things. And the more that we are empowered with our own business constructs, the more nimble that we can be.
Yeah. I hope we see some more Josiah Power as well.
Oh, well, listen, I mean, that's a cool character. We'll see.
Okay.
You know, I mean, he's a cool character. We're talking about from the power company
The
DC,
power
or you think,
baby,
yeah. Look at what DC did with that.
I know.
That one shot. And and on that final note, I hope everyone will pre-order New History of the DC Universe, The Dakota Incident, which comes out on February 25th, which is the big story about the rise and the drama of the milestone heroes within the DC superhero universe. It will star Static, Icon and Rocket, Hardware and the Blood Syndicate, Lex Luthor, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, a few others, a lot of surprise guests from the DC universe, written by myself, Stephanie Williams, Morgan Hampton, Nick Draper-Ivey, some of the best artists, colorists, and letterers in comics, but everyone's going to dig it. Guaranteed. Everyone's going to dig it. So pre-order that with your comic book shop now, and you'll be hearing more about it in the run-up to the book's release.
Absolutely. Already on my pull list, man. I cannot wait to see.
I appreciate it.
Milestone Universe getting a lot of love in February. I think that's going to be amazing, man. Those are iconic characters.
You're going to see them mix it up with some characters that are going to be a good surprise. Like if you're a Milestone fan, you're going to dig this. And if you're a DC Universe fan, you're going to dig this.
Well, I'm super excited about that. I am, I love all comic books, so there's nothing really I don't love, but I am a DC guy at heart. That was my first comics that I got. So I am so excited to see where DC Comics is right now. Just from a share standpoint within the comic book industry, they've been killing it on trade paperbacks because of their compact line that they came out there. They got like 4 to 6 titles at all times in the top 10 now when it comes to graphic novels. And then obviously with what James Gunn is doing on the movie and TV side, like DC is like one of the best places it's been in for me as a DC fan in a long time. So, and this is, everything that you just spoke about is even more good news of where DC Comics is going. So, man, Joseph, you are one of my favorite people to talk to. You are so knowledgeable, man. I am so honored to be able to have you on when I'm able to get you on. I know you're extremely busy. You got a lot of things you're probably juggling, but I can't tell you how much I appreciate you making time for me. I super appreciate you coming on and then dropping the knowledge that you drop. Like if anybody wants to understand anything that's going on in the industry, or if you're a creator trying to figure out how to navigate, just watch this podcast all over again. You dropped some crazy knowledge today, Joseph. So I appreciate you. I mean, I feel like this interview should have been paid through your website because you dropped some like crazy stuff, man. But I'm so honored that you're so open and so honest to be able to share that knowledge that you've gained over the last 33 plus years that you've been in the industry. But I truly appreciate you. I hope I get to San Diego Comic-Con. I'm assuming you'll be there. If you are, I would love to see you. I still got my picture the last time we met, which was 2 years ago.
That's right.
You and Dennis,
right.
We're doing a panel.
Yeah, it was my career spotlight panel, and I had Dennis as a special guest because he was the first founder of Milestone, and Milestone was how I got my start. So it was like, as an industry, we give people their flowers when they're dead. It's like, well, why don't I give Dennis Cowan his flowers while he's alive and right here.
Exactly.
So that's what I did. So it was good meeting you there. And thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. And it's just always a good opportunity to share. Listen, I mean,
this thing is fabulous, man.
I mean, you see the spine, right?
Yes. Yeah.
There's mine right there.
One of my cherished things that I've gotten over the last couple of years. So look at that right there.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's a memoir.
It's a memoir, man.
That's not an art. That's an illustrated memoir. It's the story of this man's life, and he's still with us. And that's the man who first came up with the crazy idea that would lead to Milestone, that would lead to Static, that would change so many lives and become an inspiration.
I don't know what to say to that. I think you said it best. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm a fanboy of his, man. I think he is ultra talented, and
100%.
Very, very fortunate to have him still in the industry. Actually, he's working on Nightwing, I believe. With Waters coming up. So
Nightwing's on my poll list now.
Yes, 100%.
He's a monthly artist of Nightwing. Nightwing's on my poll.
Crazy that he's on Nightwing, man. When I saw that, I reached out to. I've had Dan on a couple times. I'm like, Dan, you're like working with a living legend, bro. This is insane. This is
100%. I cannot wait to see how he handles Richard Grayson. I cannot wait.
It's gonna be great, more, man. Yeah, thank you for sharing your knowledge and acumen with us.
You're welcome. You're welcome,
my friend.
All right.
Well, Joseph,
have a good night.
Real quick, man. Everybody in the chat, thank you for hanging out with us. Really appreciate it. Yeah, just thank you. Hold tight real quick, Joseph.
You got it.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.